Ko rangi nui kei runga ko papa tuanuku kei raro ko ngā tangata kei Wainganui tihei Māori ora. Ngā mihi nui e te iwi ki a koutou awhi a mātou i tēnei wā ki te mātakitaki mai. Waiho i te toipoto, kaua i te toi roa. He whakatau ki whakahirehire i nei wā, ua ai me hui tātou ki te kōrero, ki te whakatau i ngā kaupapa katoa, tuatahi. Silly, insane, stupid, out of touch. These are just some of the criticisms by party leaders of MP Tamatha Paul's comments on police reform, systemic bias and beat patrols, who she believes do little more than harass the homeless. Tamatha Paul's response? Well, take a look.
He kai tuku waiata hōwi whai wāhi atu ki te tai openga nui whakaharahara o te whanganui ātara. Ko wai ake ko mema paremata Tamatha Paul no te pāti kākāriki.
If these bloody mongrels will leave me alone, I can perfect my DJ skills.
I just think that music and art has a way of communicating concepts that we can never put into words. That's why I turn to music to really drive that point home.
He whakautu tēnei whakaatūranga ki te nui o ngā kōrero whakahāwea I puta I te whare paremata I te rā wiki.
Oh, she can say what she likes, but she's totally insane.
I think what she said was silly.
I just hope by the time she's 30, she's grown up and far more responsible.
Hei tā te mema paremata nei.
There is systemic bias and systemic racism within our police, and somehow it's a problem that I'm bringing that up in this place.
Hei tā pō kua tai te wā, kia tahuri ake te kāwanatanga ki rautaki kē atu, he whakahaumaru I te pokapū o te whanganui ātara.
Like Wellington people do not want to see police officers everywhere, and for a lot of people, it makes them feel less safe.
She is totally wrong, and the Greens are in la-la land on law and order.
Tamatha Paul's comments were ill-informed, were unwise, in fact were stupid.
It's just weird, to be honest.
E hāngai ana ngā kōrero a pō ki te nui o ngā pirihimana ke ngā rori matua o te whanganui ātara. E whakahaere ana I tēnei mea e kia nei ko te Beat Patrol.
Tuatahi ake, tēnā koe. Thank you so much for making time for us this week. What a busy couple of weeks.
It's been insane.
Insane. Not just for you, but for all of you, for the Green Party. So ko te whakaaro nui kia koutou. Just thinking of all of you during this time. And you received some complaints or some feedback about some of the experiences that people were having within the CBD as a response to the Beat Patrol.
Yeah, so I spoke to people on the ground in town here in Wellington who support our homeless whānau, and one of the feedbacks, or some of the feedback that I received was around the hostility that those beat patrols were having towards homeless people, and even going so far as to pack their stuff up and put it in the bin. You know, that's not what I think anybody wants their money to be going towards, and I know that there are more important things that police should be using with their time than packing up homeless people's stuff and throwing it in the bin.
And so you're offering a solution. You made a statement that some people feel unsafe.
I've been involved in heaps of city safety things in Wellington, so I led the Pōneke Promise when I was a councillor, which got $10 million to make our city safer. And because we're a council, not the government, we had to look at all of the alternatives beyond the police. And so we looked into things like active and ethical bystander intervention, having officers and wardens on the ground. We work with the Māori wardens. We know that there's Pacific wardens as well. We looked at urban design. We looked at every single way that you could make a city safer. And I knew through that learning that there are slicker ways that you can make a city safe without pointing out to somebody that they might not otherwise be safe, such as, you know, a police presence suggests.
Chris Hipkins went as far as to say that you were ill-informed. Is that the case?
Reports like the Understanding Police Delivery report that came out last year that says that there is systemic racism and systemic bias within the police. That report outlined the way that police are not equipped to deal with people in severe states of mental distress, that there is a lot of work to do in the police. The best thing about that report is that the police themselves came out. I remember the commissioner came out and said, yes, we accept this report and we know that we've got a lot of mahi to do to build up that trust. And when I look at across the House and Parliament, it is a bunch of people who had every single opportunity in life to be great. They had people around them that told them that they were great. They could turn the TV on and see that they were great. They see themselves represented well. That's not the story for Māori. If we stuff up, we feel the full weight of intergenerational broken justice systems come down on us and put us into concrete cells where we have to rot.
This is not the first time you've advocated for this. Why do you think they responded like this right now?
It's because they're doing a terrible job. I was just a convenient distraction from the fact that this government is failing by every metric. There are fewer police officers than there were at the 2023 election. Domestic violence and sexual violence rates are going up. Our cities are not safer. When you look at the big picture of where crime is happening, it may have decreased in the central cities, but it has increased in the suburbs, which is even harder because it is less visible and harder to actually understand what's going on. Methamphetamine usage has doubled in our wastewater systems in the last year, and that's why they have tried to discredit me, to make me seem like I'm dumb, I'm out of touch. I know what's going on, I know that it's not working, and I have the evidence to back me up, which is why I'm not afraid of them and I won't shut up because they don't like to hear the truth.
And when you say I won't shut up or I won't shut the up, that was a very strong political statement that you made last weekend at Cuba Duper. What point were you trying to make with that statement?
I had a week of people telling me that I did not represent my city, that my views were not consistent with my constituents, that I was stupid, living in La La Land. All of that language, which is designed, by the way, to make particularly young women feel and seem like they're hysterical, emotional, not capable of forming a logical or reasoned argument in their head. And I know that it would have brought them great joy if I just stayed at home, curled up in bed, just being quiet and saying nothing anymore. But I know that I do represent my community. I know that because of the outpouring of support that I've had from my community and beyond across the motu. And I know that my experiences aren't my own. They are part of a broader, ongoing intergenerational criticism of the role that the police play and the criticism of prisons and of our justice systems across Western colonised countries. And so the biggest way to say that for me was to speak through music and to show, if that's the case, then why have we been saying this for so long? So that was kind of my sign of being like, I don't actually care what you think because the people are with me, and so you can't get rid of me, and you won't. But I was like, oh no, I don't know how to DJ. Oh, I was freaking out. And then I sort of just realized when I looked over before I started and everyone started cheering, I just thought, they're just here to tautoko me. They know I've had a rough week. They know that the spotlight's been on, and I think that this is their sign to say, keep going. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna give it my best. And I did, and we had a really good time. It was fun and was a highlight for the week, but also a career highlight for me too.
I want to know what you think about the role that music plays on a political spectrum, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, for me, music is what made me curious about questioning and challenging those systems in the first place. I remember listening to like Nas, Wu-Tang, Biggie, all of the greats, and thinking to myself, actually, yeah, like, why are things the way that they are? And growing up in Tureiti, you know, we would have, you know, domestic violence was normalised, and fighting, gangs, all of that was normalised. That was just part of the normal everyday life. And so I sort of questioned, where are our leaders who are going to make the jobs and make sure people have incomes and support people who are dealing with drug addiction and mental health issues? Where are those leaders?
What do you think a solution is, or how do we move forward?
So in the short term, when it comes to the prison population, there are too many people in prison because they are poor, because they are disabled, because they are Māori. So if we looked at that first, that would reduce the prison population. That's a lot of money and resources that could be going into our schools, our hospitals, our roads, all of the things that we all rely on to live good, decent lives. So that would be one thing that I would change. I would also be very surgical about the power that I gave to the police in the first place. I would limit that. I would say, police, you are dealing with these matters only that you can deal with, and the rest of your mahi will be left to people with specialised experience that can actually respond in an evidence-based way to the issues that you are currently responding to. In the long term, I would love to live in a world where we don't need police and we don't need prisons, because we have a safe community and there is no need for them.
To dive deeper into these issues, ka huri nei ki a tātou manuhiri, we're joined by Hurimoana Dennis, former police inspector and current chair of Te Puia Memorial Marae, and long-time advocate for Māori health and justice and managing director of Te Kōhau, Lady Tureiti Moxon. Tēnā kōrua. Lovely to see you both this morning. Thank you so much for coming on to Marae. Do we need to look at defunding or abolishing the police force, Lady Tureiti?
Well, I don't think we need to look at defunding it, but I think we need to look at better ways of policing in this country. And certainly we need to look at what we need for each community to build it up, rather than being very punitive, which is what we are right now, and basically siphoning people off into oranga tamariki, into youth facilities, and then into prisons. So I think we can do that a lot better than we're doing it now.
You agree, Hurimoana?
Yeah, look, I do. Just in listening to Tamatha's kōrero, it was quite a big kōrero, but one of the things that did come up is, where is the leadership? Now, when you have a criminal justice system that involves the police, courts, justice system and then corrections, and you have the same people traversing 3 different organisations, nothing is ever going to be what it needs to be, particularly so for Māori. But where is the leadership?
So what would you do? I mean, you're a former officer. Systemic bias and racism is in the police. The Commissioner said, pretty much agreed with that. They said there's lots of mahi ahead. Would you, as Tamatha suggests, would you apply a surgical approach to police power? Would you limit police power?
Look, that started the thinking right now. Look, the mental health issues is a case in point. I think the police have been quite open about the fact that that belongs in another area, and I do agree with that, because that's a long-term issue, but the police need to be there when things don't go well. But in the meantime, broadly speaking, long-term, that belongs in another area, and health, quite frankly, just haven't been there. It's been an ongoing issue, even when I was dealing with mentally impaired whānau. Too hard to deal with at 4 o'clock in the morning. You're not going to be able to resolve that. But in the meantime, what's behind that? And that was really complicated. Trying to get a DAO there at 4 o'clock in the morning, good luck. That's not going to happen.
So would you limit police power?
I would Mokopuna is another case in point. You know, oranga tamariki are struggling within themselves to try and understand and deal with what's in front of them. So that would
mental
be
health and tamariki, you would take that out of the remit of police?
Because it deserves a long-term approach and different innovations and options inside of it. And the police just can't be the front door to everything. That's not right, it's not fair.
Lady Tureiti, what's your whakaaro on that?
I absolutely think that health needs to take a bigger role in all of this. And the issue that we have with health is that we're pretty much being gutted, and the funding that should be going into these prevention types of solutions is not going that way.
And it's interesting, isn't it, too, because there's so many that we know the prison population, so many of those inmates have mental health issues. I mean, some statistics have been around that 60 to 80% mark. Do we give some of this mahi to Māori wardens?
You know, I think Māori wardens are and have always been a very important part of our community fabric. The issue again is funding. The issue again is 1 minute they're bee's knees, the next minute they're taken away, you know, and relegated. I think we certainly need that. But what we need is a much more joined up service, a seamless service. And what we have now is a disjointed service that works services that work in silos. And we need to be working much more closely together, much more cohesively. And the truth of the matter is, you know, the people in those communities know the people in those communities, and they don't work with them. In fact, as Tabitha has said too, a lot of people are frightened of them because the only time they see the police is in a negative situation.
Yeah.
So we need to change that paradigm, and I don't think we're doing enough to do that.
There was an irony in so many of these politicians saying that Tamatha was out of touch, when in fact, you know, she is part of the community that is the community that often sees the police, and not always a positive way. But Hurimoana, as a police, former police officer, what were your thoughts around Tamatha's comments regarding this notion that people would rather see a patched member than they would see a police officer?
That's just wrong. That's just wrong. Look, and I think everyone listening to this will know that that's wrong. For me, walking the beat is one of the highlights of any police officer's career. Why? Because you get inside the community, talking to people in a non-judgmental way. You're creating your own networks within your communities. The Māori wardens, the Pacific wardens, they have always been there. The police, in fact, have a very good relationship with the Māori wardens in the program up and down the country. And it's been working really well.
So beat patrols work, in your view?
Absolutely. Look, I went to a not just beat patrols, but any sort of presence, visibility inside the community has to be a good thing. Community events, kapahaka, ASB, the kaitaka wainga are already there. The
but
police...
do you have time as a police officer to be attending to those sorts of kaupapa? Tamatha Paul saying, focus your attention on domestic violence, on sexual abuse.
Absolutely, and look, I'm certainly not diminishing the impact that family violence is happening, but there has never really been a good balance of proactive and reactive policing, okay? Reactive has always taken the limelight because it always appears on TV. You don't get to see the good stuff that the police do, and they do some massive stuff, especially the iwi liaison officers. They're the hidden gems. They do so much work. A lot of the feedback that they get, you know it's going well because we get invited to areas that no one else can get into. So I think those comments around the beat and the police not having any worth inside of their community, that's wrong. And that's a really, really bad statement to make, to say that they'd rather see a patch move. That's just not right.
And we have to leave it there, but thank you both so very much. And do urge e te whānau that you read the Understanding Police Delivery report as well, from which a lot of Tamatha's kōrero came. So ngā mihi nui kia kōrua. The medicinal cannabis industry in Aotearoa is challenging with tight regulations and high compliance costs, just two of the major obstacles. Through all that, one Tairāwhiti-based company has pivoted, adapted and stayed in the game. Irena Smith with this report on Rua Bioscience.
For many, medicinal cannabis is seen as the remedy for the long-standing economic struggles of the East Coast. For Rua Bioscience, it's been a bumpy road, which they've had to navigate and adapt along the way. Those who have been part of the journey from the beginning can smell the success in the air.
The trajectory that we're on, it's really challenging, but it's always been challenging. 7 years of hard graft, and the mahi that actually the years we went before that is like, we're almost there. Like, we've literally been in this dark tunnel. There's been a few turns in it. We can see the light in the tunnel, and we're just about to punch out. So we're, as far as where we're placed really, really well.
And that's exactly what shareholders want to hear, especially after 7 years of investment with no returns yet.
Yeah, really thank you all for coming. Ngā waiwai tapu, koutou kua hara mai mai pawhiti. Kei te mingi kia koutou nau mai, hara mai ki te riu o Waiapu, ki te papatipu o Ue Poahatu.
Opening the gates of their cultivation facility and fronting up to the hard questions.
I'm really pleased that they acknowledged the mamae of shareholders around not seeing that return perhaps as quickly or as substantially as we had hoped for. But I think today has alleviated a lot of those concerns, and it is what it is at the end of the day. This is a challenging economic world we live in, so we have that to take away with us. We know where they're going. I think that's the main thing.
It's their unwavering belief in the kaupapa that has carried Rua Bioscience through tough years. Today, its leadership once again turn to their key supporters, seeking financial backing to push forward.
We've built the company, we've built the pipelines, and we can start to see the sales accelerating. But if we want sales to accelerate more, what we have to do is actually, pay growers, pay for product, and all of those sorts of things. You sort of got to, spend $1 million to turn it into $2 million, so that we need that capital to actually invest in sales growth. So marketing activities in Germany and Australia is what we also need the money for. So it's really, the money is to ramp up the sales.
The company rebranded in 2019 to Rua Bioscience and listed on the New Zealand Stock Exchange in 2020. That same year, I was one of the first to film in its brand new manufacturing facility in Gisborne.
And show the product. Yeah, this is the product. It's the difference, you can smell, yeah.
Kei te takiwā o te whā miriona tāra te utu mō tēnei whare, i te kuhutanga mai ki roto nei, ka tino rongo I te kakara o te taru. A puni ka huri e nei, hei rongoa.
They have since made the decision to pivot away from manufacturing, instead focusing on the cultivation centre in Ruatoria.
We've been learning how to play the game of medicinal cannabis. We've been learning the rules of the game for a number of years, and we thought we were going to be one thing. We thought we were going to be manufacturing the medicine, but those rules of the game didn't allow that. So we've changed our business to now focus more on the genetics of cannabis and utilising the skills of the team here in Ruatoria, and to take that intellectual property and those strains offshore. It's weird. Most people think, oh, why can't you just grow it here and sell it in New Zealand? And that would be awesome, but the regulations in New Zealand actually make it really tough and expensive to deliver a legal prescribed cannabis product to patients in New Zealand is really costly.
Originally, this kaupapa was aimed at job creation on the East Coast. While those positions haven't grown at a rapid rate, the locals that do work here hold a wealth of knowledge put down to a lifetime of experience.
They can learn how to raise. It takes passion, it takes skill and knowledge, and a lot of it takes your time, that you have away from your family and that. So you've got to really commit to what you want to achieve. Like, this is an opportunity where people would come in and think they can do anything, but you've really got to come in and prove who you are, what you do, what you know. Like myself, I talk for the people that grew and stuff like that. So it's bringing all their mātauranga, all their mōhiotanga, all their Māoritanga, how we seem to bounce between rules to make it happen here. And I had a lot of animosity against this company because when it started, I was mama in my heart, because it was like, who are you to come and take this industry that belongs to us?
Poraurangi Tāwhiwhirangi has a cannabis story very familiar on the coast, but often only spoken about in secrecy. As the saying goes, if you know, you know.
I think when I was about 17, started buying tinnies. I think just through other people doing it, and I sort of followed and ended up in Gisborne. I think I was about 20 years old. Got into a bit of shit there. Went to the King Country where that's where I learned to really grow with my brother. From there, coming back, being banished back to the coast by my family, to the mecca of cannabis growing, and being banished back here, I didn't want to go back to ask for help from my people, from my own. So I lived with our poorest communities here, grew up with our people from the grassroots, learned how to grow on the hills. And like I was saying before, our community was built on weed, if you know. And that was how I paid the bills, and yet would go to work, get treated like crap by employers in Gisborne. We could just come home and go back on the hill, make our money, take our product to Gisborne, take our product to Auckland, take it to Wellington, make a bit of money. Kids are getting good stuff. We might need a new car, registration. It's not easy, it was a hustle.
He believes that keeping both the knowledge and, most importantly, the source of the plants close to home is what makes this kaupapa unique and keeps it firmly rooted in its origins. These unique strains are treated with respect.
It's called the illicit declaration. And so what that means is that we can procure genetics from our community, bring them through the gate, put them into this declaration, and they now are within a legal framework, and that we have it in there. With Onkel strain, if we were to develop it into something that Rua says, oh, we want to send that to Canada, I've got to go back to Onkel and ask first. And then if there's something in there, I go back to Paul and say, hey, this is Onkel strain. He gave it to us for nothing. We need to give him back something for it. So you imagine if they're in America, they're paying something for it. It's like, well, some of those royalties need to come back to our people. So that's how we think. A lot of the ones that give us the strain say, you do what you need to do with it, boy. And we've been blessed with that too. Then we've got people that are giving us genetics, like recently, who can no longer hold on to them for fear of being busted by police. So they're giving it to us. So we've now become a genetic library of sorts.
Besides the science, the company also supports up to 52 people a month with free medicinal cannabis and runs a scholarship program for rangatahi.
I'm quietly optimistic. I know that the challenges are going to be significant, and in fact they are, but I have quiet optimism that with the right strategies, which they seem to have put in place, that they'll get there.
Whether it's optimism or the sense that something big is just around the corner, Rua Bioscience has secured an additional $1.5 million in investment from both existing and new shareholders. Another step forward as they steadily navigate this medical cannabis industry and make their mark on the global stage.
It's Marae for this Sunday. Kia haumaru te noho hei tērā wiki. Ko te reo, te take.